Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. A thank you to my newest Patreon supporter, Chancellor PB, and a special thank you to a longtime supporter of the channel, Irvin Wright. And a note on tomorrow's episode for Thursday the 2nd. It will most likely be uploaded later in the day, sometime between 6 and 8 p.m., as I do have a golf tournament in the morning. But getting into it, as you can see, Motor Trend got their hands on the Rivian R1T, and they said it's the most remarkable pickup they've ever driven. Now, this is actually a great thing for Tesla, because if you think about it, the more EVs, especially pickup trucks, that end up in the hands of customers, if that is Rivian can make it to any level of volume production, then that group is going to tell their friends and family, hey, come check out this EV pickup truck that is faster, more powerful, has less maintenance, more fun to drive, all of those things. And then those people are going to think, hey, maybe I should look into an electric pickup. And when they start shopping, they're going to think, okay, what are the other options? And eventually come to a Cybertruck. Not that they're all going to go buy a Cybertruck, but you get what I'm saying. So I've linked the article below if you want to go read the whole thing, but the last thing I want to highlight, the first drive with the Rivian R1T left us very impressed, not just with the truck, but with the prospect of what electrification can do for one of America's most popular vehicle segments, and to this, I couldn't agree more. Gens, of course, on Reddit put together this chart that is showing net cash to debt for all of the major automakers. As you can see, Volkswagen in the most compromised situation relative to Stellantis in the most favorable, and here you see Tesla, the only other automaker that is in the green. On Twitter, Sawyer shared an update from Morgan Stanley where one of their analysts sat down with Katie Huberty, who is a pretty well-respected figure in the EV and tech space. Basically, I'm not going to get into the details. I have linked the tweet below, but Katie was talking about Tesla being like Apple and that it really is an installed base play, meaning all of their vehicles, they're just getting them into the hands of customers, and then in the future, they later become more of a software and a service type play, which is exactly what Apple did with the iPhone. But with all of the latest rumors about the Apple Car, I would love to hear from you guys. Do you think the Apple Car will be a thing? Who would manufacture it? I personally can't imagine Apple actually manufacturing a vehicle on their own, but when it comes to the design and the software, maybe they have a role in it, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Tata Motors opposes import tax cuts on electric vehicles for Tesla. This should come as no surprise, as Tata Motors is an electric car market leader in India, so Tesla entering the space would probably not have the best implications for Tata Motors. But they mentioned that this move would go contrary to the center's fame, faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicle policy, which seeks to make India the manufacturing hub of EVs. So I'm not sure how slashing the import duties on EVs for Tesla would be against furthering the EV adoption and EV manufacturing policy that this organization has. That just doesn't make any sense as a good reasoning. Obviously, this seems pretty clear that they just don't want to deal with the competition that is Tesla. And the president of Tata Motors said the localization norms remain a key focus area to push higher adoption of electrics and making them affordable. Efforts should be made to manufacture EVs and components in India against subsidized imports. But the problem here is lowering import duties on electric vehicles for Tesla does not automatically mean that now they are actually subsidized by the government. And if this president was really worried about efforts being made to manufacture EVs and components in India, then they would actually want Tesla there. So these reasons don't seem very strong at all for why they shouldn't lower the imports for Tesla, but we'll see how it shakes out. And one more quick note on the FSD take rate from the data of about 17,000 people that Troy Teslike has gathered. Of course, Electric picked it up, but I did want to remind everybody of a comment that Elon made. If you missed yesterday's video where I talked about this data, make sure you go check it out because I explained the context in that video. But here's what Elon said with regard to this specific question. Elon was asked, can you speak to the attached rates for FSD so far and where you're targeting in terms of the subscription levels? Elon said, yeah, it's not worth commenting on right now. It's not meaningful. We really need full self-driving, at least the beta, to be widely available so anyone who wants it can get it. Otherwise, it'll be pointless to read anything into where things are right now. So basically, you don't need to put a ton of stock into the FSD take rates, no matter what the context was to how Tesla has been offering that package. This right here is actually one of my favorite news stories from Tesla of recent memory because we knew that this was coming, but to actually see it happening is really cool, and I think that this is such an awesome thing to do for decades to come. Tesla signs contracts with the first 5 students to study at Giga Berlin and many more, as I mentioned, to come. These first 5 students who signed contracts will study at the factory starting today, September 1st. In mid-June, recruitment leader for Giga Berlin at Tesla, Tobias Marman, announced via LinkedIn that the company is providing both training and dual training positions supported by a regional partner university. The only qualification needed is a qualifying degree from a high school or college or a high school diploma. 2 of the 5 students are training to become IT specialists and 3 are trained in warehouse logistics. According to the IHK, which is just the Ost-Brandenburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, from 2022, about 150 apprentices should be trained in about 10 industrial and technical specialties. And the demand for this program has seemingly been very strong for young people in the area. Joachim Fryer, the managing director of the agency, said there have been many applications from young people from local educational institutions, and there has been a lot of national interest related to Tesla's image. Tesla does want to increase its student population to 150 in the coming years, making it the largest private teaching company between Berlin and the Polish border. So what an awesome way to continually build the pipeline of fresh young talent for Tesla. I'm sure a lot of these internships and work studies will ultimately lead to full-time positions if the person so chooses. And of course, the earlier Tesla can get this top young talent, the better it will be, and they seemingly already have a wide array of applications, so they're going to get to pick the very best of the best. And as the traditional college model becomes even more expensive and honestly less relevant for getting a high-paying job in today's world, options like this are going to become more and more important. And once again, Tesla is playing in the game. This is almost another startup under the Tesla umbrella that is education. So as mentioned, I think for decades to come, this is such an awesome thing for Tesla to be doing and will only further strengthen the top talent recruiting efforts of Tesla. Matt and Z on Reddit shared, in the app redesign, the heating of the pack is now represented by a bacon symbol next to the battery icon in the top left. But if you take a closer look, you see how these wheels, they don't have the aero covers. Well, apparently if you go to the service section in the car settings menu and tap wheel configuration, you get a drop down where you can choose the aero cap kit. Choose that and the car will reboot, and the car in the app will show the wheels without the aero covers. You may need to force restart the app afterwards, as it may show the car without any wheels. And to add to this, if you update the wheel accordingly using this method, the car will use the appropriate efficiency ratings. They use the 18-inch aero in winter and 19-inch sport wheels in the summer, so the ratings do actually differ. So a little pro tip, because I definitely personally prefer the look of that wheel. Just one man's opinion. Tesla is rolling out the camera-based driver monitoring system to the radar-equipped cars. So just that in-cabin camera that is basically monitoring if the driver is paying attention. This part of the software update 2021.32.5. The cabin camera can now determine driver inattentiveness and provide you with audible alerts to remind you to keep your eyes on the road when autopilot is engaged. Camera images do not leave the vehicle itself, which means the system cannot save or transmit info unless you enable data sharing. Giant on Twitter said that with his head kind of down, he kept getting the usual autopilot nudge alert until he lifted his head back up. Even while waiting at a red signal, he just looked at his phone on the charging mat and he got an alert. So sure, from a safety perspective, this is a great thing. And when it comes to the NHTSA investigation, this will be good. But at the same time, from a user perspective, I could see this being annoying because I'll just say it, I shouldn't publicly, but I look at my phone all the time while driving. Yes, I do believe you can do this in a very safe manner. I obviously keep more attention on the road and only quickly glance at my phone and then come back to the road, making sure my driving is the main focus. The problem is when people can't do that and they look at their phone to get in a text and then get engulfed with a text or whatever they're doing on their phone and forget that they're driving. You can't let that happen. But I personally wouldn't want every time I glance at my phone to be getting an alert. That would be a pain. So we'll see ultimately how this plays out. And yes, it's only when you're in autopilot, but what do you guys think? I mean, I can't be the only one that checks my phone while I'm driving, right? But here we get the official letter from the ODI, the Office of Defects Investigation, and from NHTSA for their investigation into Tesla. This was the email that was sent just yesterday, and they are asking for so much information. In my opinion, I think it is crazy. However, let's go through this and take a look. So ODI and NHTSA has opened a preliminary evaluation to investigate crashes involving first responder scenes and vehicles manufactured by Tesla that were operating in either autopilot or TAC leading up to the incident, and to request certain info. This office is aware of 12 incidents where a Tesla vehicle operating in either autopilot or TAC struck first responder vehicles or scenes, leading to injuries and vehicle damage. In each case, NHTSA has reviewed the incidents with Tesla. A list of the 12 incidents has been included for reference. Then they do go through and actually define some of these terms as to what exactly they mean. So of course I have linked this document below. If you want to go through and read these, it might be worth your time to kind of understand what the terminology means and how NHTSA and the ODI are viewing these things. But the one I want to point out is subject vehicles, as this will come back in a second. All Tesla vehicles model years 2014 to 2021 equipped with the subject system at any time and manufactured for sale or lease in the United States, including but not limited to these areas. And of course, the subject system is the suite of software, hardware, data, or any other related systems on or off the vehicle that contributes to the conferral of any level 2 capabilities on any Tesla, including but not limited to Autopilot. And then they go through documents and what they mean, and it's just honestly absurd, all of these different documents that they're talking about. They're even mentioning floppy disks out here. But here's what they're actually asking for. Number 1, state by model and model year the number of subject vehicles. So that's all the vehicles from 2014 to 2021. They're asking for data for all of those vehicles which Tesla has manufactured for sale or lease or operation in the US. Separately, for each subject vehicle manufactured by Tesla to date, they want all of this information. Now, I'm assuming in Tesla's database, they kind of have all of this information already, but as mentioned, that's just an assumption. Maybe somebody out there has more information, let me know. But I'm just thinking to myself, if not, having to compile all this information would be a pain in the you-know-what. Number 2, state the number of each of the following received by Tesla: consumer complaints, field reports, reports involving a crash, injury, or fatality, property damage claims, third-party arbitration proceedings, and lawsuits. Separately, for each item within the scope of your response to request number 2, state more of the following information, everything that you see right here. 4, produce copies of all documents, telematics reports, and data logs related to each item within the scope of request number 2. Okay. 5, for each trade name, trim level of the subject system available in the subject vehicles, all the vehicles for that 7-year period, state its name and designation, including the following. Describe the ODD specified to the customer by Tesla for the intended use of the system, including but not limited to the following: types of roads, road marking, weather conditions, etc. The methods and technologies used to prevent subject system usage outside the ODD, and if the subject system can be engaged or remain engaged outside of the ODD specified by the customer by Tesla, and if the subject system can be engaged or remain engaged outside of the ODD specified to the customer by Tesla. Describe the subject system's maximum control authority over steering, steering angles, rates, degrees, lateral acceleration, etc. List and describe the information, system status, alerts, warnings, and graphics communicated by the subject vehicle to its driver during the DDT, like warning lights, instrument panel animations, and more. So are you guys out there sleeping yet? I mean, this is just an absurd amount of information, and obviously, as you can see, it keeps going. We don't need to go through all of this, but let's kind of fast forward to the end. So, civil penalties. Tesla's failure to respond promptly and fully to this letter could subject Tesla to civil penalties up to a maximum of $115 million for failing or refusing to perform an act required under this act. And the due date for all of this information for Tesla to submit is Friday, October 22nd. Yes, they can file for an extension if they need it, but that is the initial due date for all of this documentation to be gathered and sent. So, on one hand, if there is actually a defect with Autopilot in these situations, in these emergency response scenes, then this will be a great thing because Tesla will basically just have to implement a fix, and most likely it will be a software update. So when it comes to like a recall or anything like that, it'll most likely just be worst case scenario. The ODI says, hey Tesla, you have a defect with this system. You need to fix it before this can be operated again. So just to give you guys some context into ODI and NHTSA and their open investigations, I searched for this year and it came up with 40 results. So as you scroll down here, you can see Autopilot in first responder scenes. This is the one we're talking about. And it'll tell you here which investigations are still open. Scrolling down, as you can see, things from January of this year are still open. Some other ones from January are closed, so we might not actually get any concrete information on this for months to come. But if you guys remember that sudden unintended acceleration, well, that was another investigation that ODI and NHTSA went through for Tesla, and the ultimate conclusion was that there was nothing wrong with the system. So that is a possible outcome here where they do the investigation and come to the conclusion, hey, there's nothing fundamentally wrong when it comes to defects with Autopilot. It might just be user error. But as mentioned, I think the worst case scenario here is that Tesla just has to implement a fix for this defect when it comes to this type of scene. And sure, maybe there's a period of time, whether it's a few days or a few weeks, where Tesla is asked to turn off these features until they actually come up with a viable working solution so that this doesn't happen in the future, if indeed they actually find a defect. But like I said, when it comes to the amount of information the ODI and NHTSA is asking for, it seems absurd, especially when you consider these were the only incidents. So over the last 3 years, there were 12, yet they're looking at every vehicle from 2014 to 2021 and all of that in-depth data instead of actually starting with these 12 and then kind of going out from there. I don't know, I'm not an expert in this area. Let me know what you guys think. Are they asking too much? Is the Biden administration in a way out to get Tesla? Are they throwing the book at them? Or is this just standard procedure and how things operate? I would love to hear your opinion below. But real quick, as you can see, the Model X Plaid was spotted testing dog mode in the wild, and the Model X Plaid was also spotted on the test track at Fremont. So hopefully this means that the Model X Plaid production is going to ramp back up and we can see some deliveries of that in the next few weeks. And Elon was asked when they're going to launch Starlink services in India. We and our existing customers are waiting for wireless. Elon said just figuring out the regulatory approval process, but sadly no real firm time frame given yet by Elon. And last thing for today, StoreDot unveiled Tesla-like 4680 battery cells that they claim can charge in 10 minutes. This seems like a great thing for Jordan over at the Limiting Factor to investigate. The company said they've been working on 4680 cells for 3 years now, which I'm a little skeptical about considering Tesla would have announced that after the fact, meaning that they beat Tesla to the 4680 design. Certainly possible. And yes, this company has been focused on fast charging for some time. They say in a world first, the company demonstrated the prototype 4680 form factor that is fully charged in just 10 minutes. The company says it can achieve volume production of the new cell by 2024. But I will include the link to this article below if you want to check it out. In a future episode, we might dive in further, but today's video is already going a bit long. So that's all for today. Please take a second to like the video if you did. Reminder, tomorrow's video will be later in the day, maybe between 6 and 8 p.m. And a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. I hope you all have a wonderful day.